From May until early the following year, I lived on top of a mountain near the entrance to a narrow valley. Deep in the valley, it rained constantly in the summer, but outside the valley it was usually sunny. This was due to the southwest wind that blew off the ocean. Moist clouds carried by the wind entered the valley, bringing rain as they made their way up the slopes. The house was built right on the boundary line, so often it would be sunny out in front, while heavy rain fell in back. At first, I found this disconcerting, but as I got used to it, it came to seem natural. Low patches of clouds hung over the surrounding mountains. When the wind blew, these cloud fragments, like some wandering spirits from the past, drifted uncertainly along the surface of the mountains, as if in search of lost memories. The pure white rain, like fine snow, silently swirled around on the wind. Since the wind rarely let up, I could even get by in the summer without air conditioning. The house itself was old and small, but the garden in back was spacious. Left to its own devices, it was a riot of tall green weeds, and a family of cats made its home there. When a gardener came over to trim the grass, the cat family moved elsewhere. I imagine they felt too exposed. The family consisted of a striped mother cat and her 3 kittens. The mother was thin, with a stern look about her, as if life had dealt her a bad hand. The house was on top of the mountain, and when I went out on the terrace and faced southwest, I could catch a glimpse of the ocean through the woods. From there, the ocean was the size of water in a washbowl, a minuscule sliver of the huge Pacific. A real estate agent I know told me that even if you can see a tiny portion of the ocean like I could here, it made all the difference in the price of the land. Not that I cared about an ocean view. From far off, that slice of ocean was nothing more than a dull lump of lead. Why people insisted on having an ocean view was beyond me. I much preferred gazing at the surrounding mountains. The mountains on the opposite side of the valley were in constant flux, transforming with the seasons and the weather, and I never grew tired of these changes. Back then, my wife and I had dissolved our marriage, the divorce papers all signed and sealed, but afterward, things happened, and we ended up making a go of marriage one more time. I can't explain it. The cause and effect of how this all came about eluded even those of us directly involved. But if I were to sum it up in a word, it would come down to some overly trite phrase like, "We reconciled." Though the 9-month gap before the second time we married, between the dissolution of our first marriage and the beginning of our second marriage, in other words, stood there, a mouth agape like some deep canal carved out of an isthmus. 9 months. I had no idea if this was a long period or a short period for a separation. Looking back on it later, it sometimes seemed as though it lasted forever, but then again it passed by in an instant. My impression changed depending on the day. When people photograph an object, they often put a pack of cigarettes next to it to give the viewer a sense of the object's actual size, but the pack of cigarettes next to the images in my memory expanded and contracted, depending on my mood at the time. Like the objects and events in constant flux, or perhaps in opposition to them, what should have been a fixed yardstick inside the framework of my memory seemed instead to be in perpetual motion. Not to imply that all my memories were haphazard, expanding and contracting at will. My life was basically placid, well-adjusted, and, for the most part, rational. But those 9 months were different, a period of inexplicable chaos and confusion. In all senses of the word, that period was the exception, a time unlike any other in my life, as though I were a swimmer in the middle of a calm sea caught up in a mysterious whirlpool that came out of nowhere. That may be the reason why, when I think back on that time, as you guessed, these events took place some years ago, the importance, perspective, and connections between events sometimes fluctuate. And if I take my eyes off them even for a second, the sequence I apply to them is quickly supplanted by something different. Still, here I want to do my utmost as far as I can to set down a systematic, logical account. Maybe it will be a wasted effort, but even so, I want to cling tightly to the hypothetical yardstick I've managed to fashion, like a helpless swimmer who snatches at a scrap of wood that floats his way.